about that.
that.
But
Oh, I'm
it's
sure.
it's also, it drives me in a way that I think has, like, I won't say that the pandemic was ever a good thing, obviously, but it has driven me to have the time and the discipline again that I haven't really experienced since the military, where I've been able to just singularly focus on this stuff. And if you ask my parents or my friends or anybody, like, this is all I do now. I mean, in my free time, like, I come home from work. We work 24 hours on, 48 off. I come home
Mm,
from work and I immediately start working on vision video stuff, and that's why it's doing as well as it has, because we put in the work, and that's like, if anybody, is in the music world that's curious of like how to be successful, I literally have been telling people it does not matter what you sound like. What matters is, your presence to pull people in, and then it matters
hmm
what you sound like. I make it akin to like an apple. If the core is rotten, it doesn't matter how good it looks. So there has to be a good music in the end of the day, but you got to bring people in and draw them in, and social media is like the tool to do that right now, because we're
I
all on it all the
agree.
time. I kind of have a love hate relationship with it, but yeah, my
Me
life
too.
it's super like dualistic right now, because I go to work and COVID is like ripping through the Atlanta metro area and Georgia in general. We're like one of the worst states in the country right now because people are fucking stupid, and they just like can't follow basic rules. But
Right.
so, and we did like, I was telling somebody last night, when this all started and we hit that first big spike in May, and that was when we were trying to flatten the curve and everything. That was we were running like 1 to 2 COVID patients a week, and
Oh
now
my
I run like 4 a day. So just to give you perspective, I mean, it's like so much worse. But I come home and
God.
I get to sort of immerse myself in this sort of weird, like, dystopian but kind of cool cyberpunk reality that I live in right now, which is just like this. I'm just online and I get to meet cool people like yourself, and
Exactly.
and I feel like minus like the flying cars and the giant like Japanese neon signs, I'm basically living in like a weird Blade Runner like civilization right now.
I
So
like it. I love it. I'm like, you're making it, I don't know, with agoraphobia, as I've been calling it.
yeah.
Because it's a thing, like literally there's times where like Halloween, I think, and I'm a Halloween, obviously, the show Halloween, I
Right.
was trying to go
you
out. I
you
knew
don't
the script
say.
was coming. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, I was trying to go out and do, the social distancing stuff, but my body was like, no, bitch, you're
Yeah.
staying home. I started having panic attacks.
Yeah.
So I took it as a warning. Long story
Right.
short, California, fucking huge shit show.
Hmm.
Same thing as Atlanta. People
Yep.
ever starting for like right after Halloween. I think I have like 65 friends and family that have come down with it. And now I've lost
Right.
count.
Yeah.
But it's the simple things. And then there's to me, it's like shitting on the frontline workers because people can't. No, but the
Yeah.
restaurants here, I'm like, I don't even want to support them anymore because they weren't
Right.
adhering. There's like people who, the hair salons, I'm like, why are you still fucking doing hair? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people I'm like, fuck you guys. Like, this
Right.
is,
Well, I think it's like, that's definitely my first reaction, is to just like sort of go after the literal people that are in our communities that like remain open. But I think what I've realized, and I try to recall it and internalize it more often now, is that I don't blame anybody for any
mm,
individual actions anymore, because people are just like acting based off of irrational times. I singularly and 100% blame the government. 100%.
yeah,
Like
absolutely. For
they
the
lied.
misinformation.
They they outwardly lied. I mean, you can listen to those Woodford tapes where the same guy who broke the Watergate story broke the Woodford. This Woodford who interviewed Trump, and he's like, "We knew it was bad, but we didn't want to, make panic, so we basically lied." I mean, it's from a horse's mouth. So I blame them like 100%. And, until the government starts doing what every other post industrialized nation in the fucking world has done, which is pay you to stay home, until they do that, I
Mhm.
don't blame anybody because it's like, well, you're forcing a business to stay open. So what are they
I
going to
get
do?
that.
And then
I like
people
that.
have to patronize those businesses. So like I'm in full disclosure, like I have gone to a couple bars that have like outdoor areas where you can distance because I think that people need to realize that also it's good. You have to take precautions, wear your masks, distance, don't be on top of each other, but like don't let it rule your life with fear because
I
you're going to be
like that.
okay. It's an important message that you're going to be okay. Like more than likely, but
Okay.
you take your precautions. But I've gone to places that like I know are under dire straits and need money, and so it doesn't excuse me like bending those rules a little bit, as everybody kind of has done at this point. But
I had a
it's
friend over last week.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, there are like anybody who's like, oh, I've been totally shut in my house, like completely, they're full of shit. Everybody's done something, and that's just like on the real, like because we're
It's
human
true.
beings. You cannot stay in your house for 2 years. Like you just can't do it. It's not going to be possible. So people are making the best decisions based on irrational times, and that's just something that's just like full of insanity in general. And I, but
Chaos.
I again, I blame the federal government and local governments too. I mean, it goes down to state
No, it
levels.
does. It
You
does.
know,
We're getting this back and forth thing constantly. So here in California, where the ICU, paying attention to the news every
yeah,
day. Oh, the ICU, we're at zero capacity. Oh, but we're projecting in 4 weeks it'll level out. So hey, let's go ahead and lift the restrictions.
yeah,
So I'm just like of the mindset, like I say you're right. I have gone to a couple of places, places
yeah,
that I feel comfortable with. I have to know people.
yeah,
And then having a friend over, to help me out. And then I'm like, oh, that was fun. We should do it again in
yeah,
2 weeks. But you're right. We're making decisions in like these insane times,
right.
which leads me to the fact that with Vision Video, I was going through again, creeping through your Instagram when
Mhm.
Rick had sent me to you.
Right.
And, you know, I always get to that part. I always look at February 2020 because I'm following, a bunch of other bands and I'm trying to highlight musicians like yourselves that
Cool.
have actually were like, boom, we're hitting the road hard. We're right here. One in particular band, this Italian post-punk band that I'm in love with as well. Just thinking about them, I get goosebumps. They're so good. Was playing when she passed away, just a
Hmm.
year before. And they were the day that their second album release was the day we got locked down here in the
Yeah.
US, and they were like depressed. But what they did was they turned their depression, their fear, because I mean, this leveled the music industry. Um, Not just for, speaking from a fan perspective, when I found out that I couldn't go see Three Teeth. I had tickets to go
Hmm.
see Three Teeth for my 40th birthday. And
Hmm.
the day before I was supposed to see my beloved Three Teeth, the state shut down.
Oh
And
wow.
as a fan, I collapsed on the stairs. I've never felt this shitty before. I mean, I have, but like it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But as a fan, but then like, I got over myself and I'm like, are these bands going to be okay? So
Hmm.
what I'm finding is I'm looking at your journey from February 2020, and then I see the March posts. And you guys were one of those bands who was going strong, and then boom, you're cut off. And instead of giving into depression, anxiety, and going, fuck it, we're just going to have to go save lives and give up on music. What I really, really want to highlight, let me look at my notes here, is how the pandemic leveled the music industry and how independent bands who just got started
Hmm.
use this depression, this anger, this uncertainty to fuel their music
Yeah.
for the rest of the year. And how did you fucking pull it off? I mean, again, Agent Orange was released in August of
Yeah.
2020. And I'm serious. I told my husband, I was like, I really think I'm pretty sure it was on DJ Tommy Sikorsky's playlist a couple of weeks ago,
Nice.
which is pretty dope,
That's
I'm
cool.
like, I know
Yeah.
that song. So you guys are getting yourselves out there, and not to mention, we'll get into your makeup looks here in a second because I'll do the music first.
Yeah.
But how would you, speaking for the entire band,
Sure.
how did you guys decide to say, fuck it, we're just going to keep going? Your tours were canceled, your shows were canceled. How did you decide to just say, fuck it, we're just going to keep making music?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess when we hit around that March timeframe where it was like very clear to me as a medical professional, and Dan, who's a biochemical engineer at the University of Georgia. Yeah, we call him Professor Dan because he's actually literally a professor at the University of Georgia. He's got a doctorate. We either call him Dr. Dan or Professor Dan. But anyway, we together with our heads together reading as much as we were about the coronavirus and everything that was coming out in the scientific world and the non-political world, we saw like, okay, this is not a fuck around disease. Like this is a real thing, and this is going to be locked down for probably over a year. So we knew that from the beginning in a way, maybe not to the extreme that it was going to manifest, but we decided, sort of him and I, very early on that, basically everything that we love doing, we can't do anymore. Like, Dan DJs regularly, we play shows, we had tour stuff lined up. All this stuff is gone. Okay, got it. One of the best things that I learned in the military is, strategic pivoting, which is sort of, okay, in the military terms, the enemy has made this decision and created this form of action, and it ruined your plan. What do you do now? Okay, well, you don't just lay down and die, because no, you move on. You figure out a way to get around, and you come at the problem at a new angle to figure out how to make it work for you. And so we pivoted on that moment, and I said, Dan, I'm going to fully invest myself on the front end of this, and you help me with the back end with the administrative stuff, and let's just do this. Let's just hit this as hard as we can and see where it lands. So between just sort of our own organic advertising and marketing, which is very limited, and then just social media stuff, we just really got out there and put it out in a way that put our personalities out for people. We do things like Twitch karaoke, which we're actually doing tonight at 9 p.m.
Oh, good. I was just putting a note down to make sure that I get on that tonight. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. So, and that's a really fun thing that we do where Dan from his house, he zooms into me, and we have this really fucking crazy, Back to the Future dock system where we have 30,000 pieces of equipment working in tandem and they're barely functioning, but somehow we keep it so that Dan can hear me in real time while he moderates, and we pull up YouTube karaoke and people request and I sing it, and Dan sort of dances and DJs, and it's really fucking hilarious. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's really fun. We get a little too drunk and we just dance a lot, and it's just a cool way to interact with people. And it's no, it doesn't take it took a lot of setup initially, but now we have it down to this wacky algorithmic science where we're all right, we got to connect this wire to this thing, and it always takes about an hour for us to get it back up working again. But again, it is a really cool way for us to just sort of connect with people that like our music, and that's what all this social media bullshit is. It's not, here's a cool picture of me. I mean, in essence, yeah, at the front end of it is, but here's a cool picture of me. You say something, and then I get to talk to you about it. I get to say, hey, I'm sure that I'm my favorite directors, and people go, oh, I love Lucio Fulci, and we have a cool conversation about it, and it makes an authentic connection, and that's what I'm interested in, is building a fan base, not just so that I can make money or whatever, because I mean, to be quite honest, I don't give a shit. I would love to make enough money to do this professionally, and that's it, and have no other job. But I want to do this because I love the art and the artistry of music. And if you don't have the, I had this conversation the other day with somebody. Music as an art form is all about the transmission of a message, a complex emotion, or an idea that can't be said. It has to be delivered in this medium. And if there's nobody who's authentically at the other end for me to give that message to, then what's the fucking point of it, right? Like, I don't have any interest outside of, conveying sort of a commiseration of trauma with people, because that's what all of our music in this first record is all about. Is about like dealing with trauma and stress from trauma. And again, if nobody's there to authentically receive that, then I have failed, and it's pointless. So to kind of I'm sorry, I'm really talkative, and my mind is like
I love this.
going a
I love
million
this. Keep going.
miles a minute. Yeah, so because all the record stuff is this day has just been so wild. So, but in any case, it matters to get on social media and to promote yourself in that way, but it has to be done from a place of like authenticity. Because if you're just like posting stuff to post stuff, for this, I mean, it's just so like transparent and flimsy. And not to say that everything that I post is like this grandeur, meaningful gesture or whatever, but I do try to like legitimately respond to as much comments and engage with people on a legitimate level.
And you do.
And I think that's something that's what most bands don't do. And that's why they're not seeing success with social media, is because you have to build. It doesn't matter. Like, we could have 100,000 followers and it wouldn't mean shit if none of them really gave a fuck about the record and they just followed us. What matters, I will take 10,000 followers who each and every person cares about the music over 100,000, and like some of them care. Exactly. Because I that's what it's all about, and that's why it matters. So that was kind of our plan. And then we got, I mean, I'm not gonna be deceitful with you. We got lucky too. Like, social media, this is the part that I fucking hate about social media. It's an algorithm that just goes yes or no. It's like, have you ever seen the fucking Russell Crowe movie, The Gladiator?
Yeah.
Like where the emperor is like, and then he gives the thumbs down and they get executed. It feels like that. Like, you post something and you're like, is it gonna work? And then like Instagram or TikTok's like, nah, yeah, no. Okay. And then sometimes it does work, and then sometimes it's just like, nah, and it's never the thing that you think is gonna be like a good hit. The thing that you put work into or whatever. So, so we got lucky with some stuff, like some interesting people, like just a name, like, not to name drop, but like Biff Naked, the Canadian singer.
Biff Naked?
She like shared. I don't know her, but she like we follow each other. We follow each other on social media because she like shared our song at one point, and like some other people, that kind of weird, like out of nowhere, is like, what the fuck kind of thing. That kind of thing happened a couple times. So there's like this element of just like luck that you can't control. And I guess that's always been the case before social media. I mean, a band plays in a bar and there's an A&R rep, and it just happens to hear it and says, hey, this is good, and we are still by no means massive. I mean, we have a long way to go. And so I don't want people to think that I think that we're on some level that we're not, because I humble myself with my own imposter syndrome every morning. So like, I wake up every day and I go, holy shit, like, this is just like, you are fooling these people. And then, I mean,
I have to ask, because I have that same thought this morning. Are you a Pisces by any chance? Are you a water sign?
No, I'm a Virgo, actually.
Okay, so there's similarities.
I'm a cusper Virgo, yeah. So
okay,
I don't know a hell of a lot about astrology, so you'll probably have to school me on that for sure.
Oh well, I just have to ask, because I had that same thought this morning, and I'm like, am I full of shit?
I think it's like a natural thing. Yeah.
Am I gonna get found out? Like, yeah. But then I'm like, but wait, and I have to talk to myself and go, found out about what? You're just literally, for me, it's the same thing. I'm all about quality versus quantity. So I don't give a shit about how many followers I have, as
Right.
long as the 300 that engage sometimes are engaged because they want to engage. I get
Right.
messages. What I value are the DMs that I get where they're like,
Yeah.
your light is so incredible. And I'm going, fuck, I'm not a shitty person. I'm coming out of trauma, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
40-year-old who's coming out of her who's just coming out of her shell and realizing that no, I'm not a piece of shit. I'm not
Right.
this loser who's just a housewife and a mom. I actually have light to share. And I think what was really important is that I do have that self-talk every day, like, am I full of shit? But it really hit me this morning. So maybe it was a precursor to the conversation.
Yeah.
And really quick, Biff Naked, it's so funny. Every time she's this weird thing that comes into my life. I think I might hit her up one day. I listened to her when I had I got pregnant with my first son when I was 19, and I was up with him in the middle of the night watching MTV.
Uh-huh.
And 19 years old and going, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? I'm going to have to turn into, just like Susie Homemaker. And she came on, one of her videos came on. She's covered in tattoos. In 1999, I don't know how old you are, but in 1999, I was like, women can get full body tattoos.
Like, yeah, that was a different story back then. Yeah,
right?
It was totally different.
And I'm like, holy shit, I want to do this. And then, just it's funny. But then, like, she's one of those people that I randomly think about every like 5-10 years or so. And then you bring her up today. I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to revisit
it's
that.
Such a weird. And then you remember that she put out this like fucking unbelievably good song. The Lucky Ones is like,
yes,
that's a bop. I mean, I don't care who you are. Like, that shit is super good. For your reference, I'm 34, so I do remember those years, and I have to like remind myself that I'm getting older, I guess sometimes. But
no, don't.
I mean,
don't.
it's something that's so funny to me because my 20s like disappeared like that because of like the war in Afghanistan and just like all of that shit and all the time I spent in the military, it just like went by like a flash. And so, to me,
and thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh no, it's I appreciate the sentiment. I think that I'm proud of like most of the things that I did in my direct experience with the military, but I think that it's important for me to remind myself all the time that like war in general is like fucking evil. It's literally human personified evil. And on top of that, like the reasons why we are at war still and have been for like 20 years now, it's like total bullshit now. Like I think there were good reasons at one point, obviously. I mean, like 9/11, all that jazz, like we had to do something. But 20 years later, we've just like created this state of perpetual warfare. And that was like by design. And that is even more evil than the act itself. Like the fact that these like old white men are sitting in some fucking office somewhere and making like decisions, like deciding on, whether you are going to put sugar in your coffee or not on that day.
Right.
And those decisions like literally kill like families because they're bombing somebody, and that shit. It's so like utterly repugnant. And most of my chagrin that I faced coming out of the military and a lot of the like existential problems that I faced was like, realizing that I was a big part of this thing that happened. And, there's a lot of guilt that I've had to work through and that I'm more comfortable with because I realize it and I have to make like some level of atonement with the world in a way. And I think that I do that in essence by this music, right? Because it's, like we have the song on the record called Organized Murder that'll be out with a full length. And it's a very dark, foreboding song that fully mirrored like my internalization of how I felt about what was going on over there and what just war in general is. There was this one point in time where I was training at Fort Benning in infantry officer school. I went from being enlisted soldier to an officer, and I was in the infantry officers course, and we were training on like ambushes, which is like literally you line up and hide and wait for an enemy, element to move in front of you, and then you just like kill them without them having even the chance of doing anything. And it's not a fight; it's murder.
It's organized murder, like you said.
And I just could not like reconcile that because it was such a ugly and malignant thing, and we like reveled in it. And to full disclosure, like I never killed anybody. I came very close a couple times, but I never personally fired and killed anybody. But it doesn't matter that one individual does not pull a trigger. You're part of this thing that does that, so you're all complicit to this thing, and we like reveled in it. We were, you're sort of brainwashed to believe that like, yeah, like we're gonna go, like as infantry guys too, like we were like, yeah, we're gonna go to combat and like we're gonna get in the shit and it's gonna be badass. And it's like there's nothing cool about it. There's nothing like the first time when we got fucking hit with like rockets in the middle of the night, it was like 1:02 in the morning. And they shot these, like, the Taliban shot these big fucking Chinese rockets at us that, like, exploded outside of the fob. And I, like, woke up and one of my sergeants was, like, getting out of bed. And he was just like, what the fuck? And I tackled him to the ground. And I was, like, laying on top of him. And we're in this, like, big tent, basically. And I was like, if one of those rockets hits this tent, like, it doesn't matter that I'm, like, laying on top of him or that we're on the ground. We're all just going to fucking turn into hamburger meat. And it's like... It's just totally random, and it's like there's no meaning to any of it. It's just this perpetuation of itself. So yeah, a lot of that is what kind of fed the record. And then I came back from all of that. I left the Army in 2016 and came back to Athens to like go to grad school and write music, and I ended up joining a fire department instead. But the music started happening. But while I was starting to write the actual just like guitar pieces and stuff, I like basically lost my fucking mind. And that was in 2018, where I just sort of, I never properly dealt with the stress of all of that 9 months that I was over there. And, because we came back, I was stationed in Germany. We went back to Germany, and it was just sort of like I kind of drank it away and traveled and distracted myself so heavily through work and everything else that I was just like, well, I'm fine. I guess I'm just okay. And then I got back here, and then in 2018, so 4 years later, I completely just like lost it. And I had this like crazy mental breakdown where I had to take like 2 weeks off from work at the fire department, and I basically couldn't get out of bed, and I just wanted to die. I mean, straight up, I just was like, this is never going to change. I'm never going to get better because I don't see how I could, even if I talk about this, it's going to make anything better. And that's actually the song Inked in Red, which is the namesake of the album, the title of the album. That's what that song is about. It was just sort of, real, like waking up in the morning and the first thing that you think of is like, man, I just can't wait to die. And, and it wasn't like, and that's just like blatantly unhealthy. Like nobody should have that thought ever, but especially not your first fucking thought of the day. Fortunately I've managed to work through it, but it never leaves, and it's always there. And you're going to have like people, and this, having been somebody that's suffered through trauma, it's like, you don't get over it, you get on with it. Right. So you learn to live
and you cope with it
in parallel. Yeah. Right. And that's what our music is about. And that's why, and like post-punk and goth music, I think has always been the perfect medium for that message, because it's music that, in my opinion, does not shy away from the dark proclivities of reality. And in fact, specifically analyzes them and explores them, and there's some sort of catharsis and exegesis of those really heavy things that like are not nice to talk about.
What we witches call it is shadow work. It's called shadow work in the occult, and everything that you're saying, it's just like going up and down my spine, because I had wrote down, I think you posted this today. You wrote that, because I was questioning this, and this is what, okay, I'll just read it to you what I wrote.
Sure.
Goth rock post-punk thrives on its dark undertones. It's relatable. It forces us to do our shadow work. With Static Drone dropping today, you posted that Inked in Red is a 10-track story of mental health destruction, born of human mortality and government incompetence. And this is where I was like, I hope Dusty doesn't mind me asking these questions, but you just laid it all out there for me.
Yeah.
It's a personal thing is for you as you have ever made. Oh, sorry, I may have messed that up.
That's
so
okay.
That's really interesting to me, because I had this conversation when American Sniper came out with my husband, because I'm biracial, but identify as Black.
Right.
Especially during the last 4 years, it's like, what the fuck, we're going through all this shit. And then I'm like, my husband's he's a Navy vet, but he actually, we met when we were 25. So he was already out, and he didn't, he went into actually IT work. He's like a fucking computer. He's a fucking IT genius.
Yeah.
And so we had this conversation, because him and I were on the rocks too, based off of political differences. But he finally fucking came around. And because it was like either me or your stupid ass country music, American loving bullshit, because he's a straight edge person. And I'm like, oh, hell no, this is not who I am. So, we have these talks with our kids, because he was always like, you boys need to go into the military. And I'm like, fuck that. And stories that I feel need to be highlighted are ones like yours, where you see the bullshit, and you admit that it was or like you say, organized murder, where you're essentially brainwashed, where is Chris Kyle, for example, just out of the many examples, was held as this, American hero. Right. And I feel like he, according to the movie and the little bit that I read on him, he didn't do his shadow work. He didn't let it feel. He tried to channel it into helping other vets. But to me, it came a little too late. You see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So, and the fact that you're goth as fuck, like, is another huge thing,
so I do want to say that, as much as like the system of the military is like really oppressive and negative and just bad in general. I mean, there's so many like just horrible things about it. There are also a lot of very good things. The things that I have benefited from with the military made things like the level of success that we have with the band happen. I own my home because of the military. I have this weird. I painted my house black, and there's a hearse out front because of the military. Like, I would never have been able to do any of that. You know what I mean? Like, I have zero chill when it comes to home decor. If you couldn't tell, it's like ridiculous.
I love it.
And those are all just like materialistic things, but the benefits that you do get is the discipline, the strategic thinking, and most importantly, the ability to fully empathize with somebody that you have nothing in common with. I had, when I was a rifle platoon leader in Afghanistan, I had 30 soldiers in my command, and I had, Black kids from New York. I had white kids from Virginia. I had, kids from Southeast Asia. I had every ethnic, racial, religious, background, basically, that you could imagine. And we all had to come together, and we all bonded over the sense of we were the third platoon bastards, because my platoon got taken from our mother unit and put in with this like really incompetent group of idiots. And like, we were the bastards because we were sort of like, well, we've been sort of cast away, but we all kind of rallied around this identity. And one of my favorite books is Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, which is about Tim O'Brien being drafted into Vietnam. And it's sort of a fictitious but also true story about his real experience going over there. And he talks a lot about the sort of this narrative idea that soldiers are dreamers, because we we want so fiercely and badly for things to be better that we're willing to go do terrible, horrifying, and scary things to make that a reality. And that basically, the truest sense of love is like something that you experience when you're in a foreign land and you're far away from home, and you have this guy or girl with you that, like, without question, like, unequivocally, I could say, even to this day, I would die, like, right now for any one of those people, because it was a mutual it was a mutual agreement, and that is bound by love. So there's a lot of beauty to what you do experience, but I think that's all in the individual's level. It has nothing to do with the government or the war itself or anything above you, because that's all out of your sphere of control anyway. You're just like an ant in this grand scheme of things. But like I said, there's just this intense, incredible beauty. And so, when people are like, well, what do you think about people joining the military? I say, when I was 19, going on 20, there were 2 wars, and I was reading a lot of French existentialist literature. I was reading way too much Camus and Sartre and stuff like that, and like Kurt Vonnegut. And I needed to. I was so listless and just sort of moving through life like a just ghost in purgatory, just no direction. And I saw this war, and I was like, well, maybe this is where I find what I'm really made of. And that was all it was for me. So, sometimes people need that, and it just sucks that there's no other civic option for you to do something difficult. Like, I don't know, maybe we should just like have some sort of like federal organization that like takes 18-year-olds who don't know what the fuck they want to do and like puts them to work and gives them a job doing something that helps a bunch of people for like, I don't know,
but that's because they want them to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on interest on student loans,
or join the military and
join the military is the option.
Be paid fucking peanuts to go kill people that they've never met. And
kill people. And I love your outlook, and I'm so glad I'm recording this, because if with your permission, I would love to actually play this for my husband and kids later.
Of course.
Do you see what social? I like to give him shit because he's like, last year, he's over it now. He's like, who are these not last year, 2019, who are these virtual people showing up at my house? And I've met the most incredible people using social media. So I'm with you on that. But I do want to share this. And I'm like, I always have a really good intuition. So I'm like, sometimes I'll get someone, look at this person or look at this person. I know there's a surf music director out there who hates my guts because I was not feeling her shit. And I just didn't, I just kind of like ignored her emails, and because I can't be mean. I'm really bad at I'm bad at like rejecting. So I get it, but I always seem to come up 98% of the time finding someone with a fucking badass story. And I love stories. So you don't have any idea, right? You have no idea how like I'm enjoying the fuck out of this. So
I'm happy to hear that.
You're so busy. Your story is actually fucking incredible. I've never met a goth, a person into your type of music and your look and aesthetic, who was also in the military or a first responder. Even I live in this really boring ass suburb where everybody's the same, but we're labeled as the neighborhood Satanist. We've been accused of which makes no sense. I don't think we even lived here. I have 4 kids, but I wasn't pregnant with anyone when we moved here. But when we did move here, I've always been a controversy because I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I am not going to be a Karen.
Good.
So I'm used to, the first responders who I used to party with, and I'd have to do these things with, because our kids all went to school together, but finding, they're all ex-military, but they're also ex-white supremacists. Then half of them are LAPD officers. So I'm going, oh my God, what am I doing here? So, but I just survived and I just went along with it. So when I find like-minded folks who actually had the experiences that you had, I treasure that. So with that, I don't even want to go into what the pandemic has taught you about the resilience of music, because you already said so. Now, what do you? Well, I want to go into your makeup look. Fuck.
Sure.
Fuck. How long have you? When did you decide? You know what? I'm just going to call you an MUA. I mean, you are a makeup artist. That's what you are.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm around scare actors and makeup artists all the time, and I've never seen your skills here in Southern California. I mean, nice. Fuck. When did you get into makeup?
So when I was like a teenager, growing up, I lived out in like rural Georgia, like fucking middle of nowhere, Georgia. And there was nothing for me to do except like go hunting and like shoot guns in the backyard and like play music. And I got into goth stuff. I mean, like everybody where I lived is like at least like 3% a kind of a redneck, so there's like always going to be that side of me. I'm a vegetarian now, so I don't hunt anymore, but like I understand it and I respect it. But so I basically when I was growing up, I've always been into horror movies, and that was something that my parents kind of instilled in me. A lot of my music taste and film taste comes from my parents in a basic sense. But I just started reading all these books about special effects makeup artistry when I was about 15 through 17. And that was like when the internet was starting to really become the internet, and that like YouTube wasn't even a thing quite yet. It was like sort of there, but there were video websites where you could get like tutorials and stuff like that. So I started to learn special effects makeup, and I had it in my mind at the age of 17, 18. I dropped out of high school and I was like this close to moving to LA to go do special effects makeup. And that was when I had no discipline. That was never, I knew in my heart that it was not going to work. And I was just going to fall on my ass because I didn't have discipline. And that was like what led me to the military. But I had all this, I had been practicing on it for like years, like 3 years. And I had sort of just been in the house, like making horror movie shit on my face just because I had nothing else to do, because I didn't have a car. I was too young, or I didn't have one when I became of age. And, so I had the basis of knowledge before I kind of got back into it. I didn't really get back into makeup until I moved back here and we started doing a goth night in Athens. My friend and I started to sort of do this DJ night, and it got pretty big for Athens. I mean, Athens isn't a huge city, but it's like, it's not a place that you'd think would have a good goth scene, but we have a pretty good one here.
I love it.
And it's very like small and organic, and the people are fucking great. But anyway, so basically I got back into it through that. Like I dated this girl a couple years ago, and she was like, "Well, you gotta do the makeup stuff." And I was like, "Hell yeah, like let's do it." So she kind of taught me some stuff, just some real kind of eased me back into that world. And then I remembered like, holy shit, I fucking love this stuff. So I started to like really do it when Vision Video got together, and I started doing it more and more, and I was like, man, I really enjoy this. So to the point where every time we had a show or we would do the goth night DJ set, I was like fully decked out, but I wasn't very good because I was only doing it like once a month or once every other week or whatever. But I mean, honestly, the pandemic has skyrocketed my skill because, like I said, all I do is I come home and I do social media stuff, and like I spent the first 3 months of the pandemic really learning. I'm part of this really badass sort of very cool, unbelievably cool group. And if you're not on there, I would fully love to invite you because you'd fit in swimmingly. It's called Makeup, but Make It Goth/Grunge. And it's a mostly queer women run and operated group. It's extremely progressive. They have very strenuous but like totally reasonable rules to make everybody feel included. So you can't use like gendered language. You can't recommend brands that are shitty, that have like problematic issues. But if you can follow the rules, which most people that are reasonable and like normal human beings can, you get some Karens in there every now and then. It's really funny. But anyway, I learned a lot from just watching, just like, and I'd be like, wow, that is fucking cool. And I would do it. And I just kept doing it, like, because I had nothing else to do. And we were like, that was in the beginning where I wasn't in full promotion mode with the band because we were like, well, is this only going to be a couple of months? Like, okay, I'll kind of chill.
What's going to happen? Yeah.
But I spent like 2 months. Like I have this crazy extensive makeup collection because I'm a bit of a collector. I like to, when I get into something, I get really into things. So I was like just replicating a lot of these looks, and I started to refine it to my own method and my own sort of signature looks. I've got a couple signature looks, and then a lot of the time though, I just kind of go into it and I just like go for it. I just let it happen, and I don't have a plan. I just I figure out a couple basic colors that I'm going to work with, and then I figure out line work. And it's almost like tattooing in a way. Like you're going to do the line work, and then you're going to do the color and the shading and the blending. And it's I've got it down to this very systematic process for myself now that works for me. It probably doesn't work for like anybody else, because at the end of the day, with everything that I do, I have no idea what I'm doing. I really don't.
Again, you sound like me. I don't know today.
I'm shooting a shotgun into the night, and I'm hoping that I hit something. I mean, it's like
I get it.
And again, that's where my imposter syndrome always comes into play. It's like, I just, it's like sometimes I wake up and I'm just like, I don't even know how I did that thing that I did. Like, what? Like there was this one time, one of my favorite looks that I did was this like really intense splattery look. And I've gotten to figure out how to like replicate it now, but it took me forever to figure it out because I was like kind of real drunk when I did it. And I woke up the next morning, I was like looking at pictures on my phone that I'd taken of that. And I was like, how the fuck did I do that? I just don't remember. And I wasn't even like blackout drunk or anything. It was just such a long and involved process that I just like didn't remember every single step from A to Z. And it was just so weird to me. But yeah, the makeup stuff to me now is kind of like its own storytelling in a way. I think some of my looks tend to reflect how I feel very directly. I can
tell.
Yeah, they're very like if I'm happy and I'm like feeling it and I'm in a good mood, I do something that's like bright and cheery. If I'm like feeling like shit and I'm just like over everything, it gets a lot more basic and like angular and bizarre. But those are honestly some of my favorites. So it's like, I hate the fact that we have to be miserable to make like really good art sometimes. But
I've been saying that my whole life as a creator. Well, my life as a creator, same thing. And actually, I just think that's just part of what it is. And it fucking sucks. But it's like, well, if we don't, we're going to end up making like pastel pink love and light looks and bullshit that we're not even into. Let's stop lying. And it does that. Pain sucks, but damn, you make it beautiful.
Well,
don't you think Stephen King was a better writer when he was drunk, in my opinion?
Yes. I mean, my favorite horror book is Pet Sematary is my favorite book, and that's when he was like the absolute drunkest and on like the absolute mountain of cocaine that he was sitting on. And his wife was like, my favorite story about that book is he wrote that. And then like he always does, he gave it to his wife and he's like, what do you think? She read it in a day and she's like, don't put this out. It's too dark. It's too fucked up. And it's like, nobody's going to actually enjoy it because it's so emotional and charged and fucking just.
It kept me up for 2 days. The book, not the movie. The book.
The movie is great. I fucking love the movie. Dale Didkiff, I think his name is the guy who plays Louis Creed is fucking phenomenal. And then obviously Fred Gwynn, like unbelievable. But the book, it gets into your soul in a way that is just so undeniable.
I compare it to what people say. They're people who have actually braved watching. What's a Serbian movie? I haven't watched it. Oh,
Serbian film, yeah.
People tell me like they're like if you're gonna watch, they're like don't. People who watch it tell me don't watch it, and I'm like, ugh. But that's how I compare it to. But apparently there's no comparison. But that's what I mean. Like once you've read it, you can't unread it. You can't get it out of you.
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah, but I mean, so he ended up like shelving that book for like 2 or 3 years. He put it in a filing cabinet, and then like some publisher was he had like he owed them one more book, and because he had a new deal with a bigger publisher, and they were like, well, you got to give us one more, Steven. And he's like, well, here you go, and he
Here's
just
this
like threw
garbage.
it at him, and then it becomes like his bestseller of all time up to that
Right.
point,
When
which
he
is
threw out Carrie too, he threw out Carrie,
yeah,
and
it's fucking
Tabitha was the one who
crazy.
was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, it's just that's so weird to me. But I
Creatives
mean,
are
I
amazing.
again though, I think that's very telling, and that's very anecdotal to, uh, it's not that like, people are always like, why do you like all this like horror movie stuff? Like I'm literally wearing a shirt that has like a girl's head caved in from the beyond. This is one of many very publicly unacceptable shirts that I have. But so but it's not like I'm not like, yeah, like I just want to see violence or whatever. But it is this exploration of controlled chaos, and it's
Exactly.
and when you read or watch horror in media, you are exposing yourself to trauma that does not harm. And that helps
Exactly.
you get over trauma that does harm,
I
because it helps
agree.
you understand uh, things in a sort of more esoteric and outside of yourself experience. And I think that that's ultimately a good thing for most people.
Yeah.
And that's like why I'm so fascinated with like horror and all of that stuff. I mean, it started at a young age,
Same.
and it's just it's carried through my whole life to the point where I like could not imagine, this world without this stuff that we love, that we
I
kind of surround
agree.
ourselves with. So,
I agree. And it comes from, like you said, the controlled chaos. It actually helps with
mm,
anxiety. I actually was lucky enough to have Vice call me and interview
oh,
me
cool. Oh, that's
about
badass.
yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't know if my story was like impressionable as some of the other, the thing right
Mm,
now is a lot of black horror creatives, because this is our time to shine, which is pretty fucking
hell
dope, the
yeah.
time that I'm living
Yes.
in. Because before, I thought I was the only black goth in the world. I also thought that
Right.
I couldn't be both at the same time. So you can
Right.
imagine, now I'm like through
Yeah.
social media connecting with all of these,
Right.
black creatives. But it's really
That's so
interesting
cool.
because yeah, she was like, I'm doing a thing on why, black horror, but what is the appeal? What is the
Yeah.
psychology behind it? And
Yeah.
it all turns out, all the people that she's talked to, it's the same thing. Like, it's this chaos that we're able to control, that we're able to enjoy without it being real. I can't do your job. There's we watch 911, we watch
Mm,
all these doctor shows,
right.
but the minute that something, I think we watched the Texas one last night, the 911, and they're in this pool, such a
Nope.
dumbass. Oh, look at, hi, you.
It's my
Hey
Grauwald. He's like my
there.
mostly outdoor cat, but he's inside for the day.
Oh, we
Sorry.
can chat with you. No, I love
Yeah.
it. So yeah, like there's an arm ripping off, and I know it's total bullshit, but I being it's a real life reality setting, I
Mm,
cringe and I have to look away.
yeah.
So it's really funny how like my husband can watch a 911 show or these paramedic shows where they're like just following the paramedics around,
Right.
and he's fine, but you give him a horror movie, like your shirt would freak him out because he can't, which he makes no sense to me, because
Yeah.
he had when he was on one of his ships, there was an accident that happened where a head was like
Oh
your shirt
wow.
from the
Right.
beyond.
Just
So
yeah.
we have to tell, like if I see a movie, I usually watch a horror movie first, and I'm like, oh, you can't watch
Mm,
the scene because it'll freak him out. But
yeah.
he can watch all this shit on TV, but he has problems with horror movies, complete opposites.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
interesting.
I think the it's probably because in horror films, you're more like emotionally connected to what's going on than like just some segment on 911 or whatever, where they're just
Mm.
like, here's the situation that happened. And they don't really like fully show everything. But uh,
Ugh. I
yeah,
don't know. It's just really interesting, but I can't deal with real life
yeah,
blood. My kids bleed and I faint. So
yeah, yeah. It's definitely hard to do my job because there's many days where we're just like I keep like 3 or 4 uniforms at the station because like we just get utterly covered in like pieces of people sometimes, and it's like, I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's just so you get very acquainted with human anatomy doing what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, like I could tell you some things that would just make you sit, like go, what, you know? And it's, I think for me, it helps me because, like, you know, there's all this stress from Afghanistan that I had, but I, to be totally level with that, you know, nothing bad happened to us there. Like, we didn't lose anybody, nobody got killed.
Oh, good.
In my platoon, my unit lost people, but we didn't suffer any casualties, which is like unbelievable.
Like the
But
goddesses, yeah.
yeah, but like now I see this stuff, and I've seen murders, I've been on active shooter scenes, I've been on many like awful suicides. So many that I don't even know and I don't care to count. You know, cardiac arrests, finding dead bodies, unrevivable, just so many awful, like horrible car accidents. And, you know, now it's so weird because I come home and it's like this alternate reality is just like over there, and then I'm here. And then there's this very strange schizophrenic dualism that I have to kind of reconcile now, and I do that through, you know, music and art form media that we do with the makeup and all that other stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
It's your therapy, and I love that. Now, how did you meet Emily? And your drummer's name is Jason. How did you guys meet?
Yeah. So Emily, so basically the band started with me and Jason. Jason and I both work. I still technically work there, even though it hasn't been open in a year. The Georgia Theater, which is a really storied and amazing music venue here in Athens. I bartend part-time. So if you ever need a good stiff cocktail, I can make a killer old fashioned for you when we come.
I love old fashions. I'm coming to Georgia. Or when you come to LA.
Absolutely. I actually have an Airbnb. It's a horror themed Airbnb in the back of the house. So, you know, come hang out in Athens when we can. You know, you and the husband can come stay here.
Fuck him, I'm coming. Fuck that. He'll be like, "Why do I have to go to these virtual friends' houses?"
But Athens is super cool anyway. The music scene is crazy. But anyway, so we were working together, and I was showing him a lot of the stuff that I was writing. And he was like, "Oh, this is great, man." You know, because Jason and I have very like parallel music tastes. You know, he's in a punk band also called She He He, and he's just this really bombastic, like crazy punk drummer. He hits the skin so fucking hard. It's so cool. But he was like, "Hey, man, you know, I just been using drum machines." So he's like, "Why don't you come over and like I'll play some drums to this stuff." So we started just kind of jamming out, just seeing if it would work. And it was like crazy how good it was. And I was like, wow, this is really coming together. And we had posted like a couple things on just like kind of Facebook, like, hey, it's me and Jason fucking around in the practice room in his house. And then Dan, who was in a band called pre 9/11, it was called I Am the World Trade Center. And unfortunately for them, you know, 9/11 occurred. They were actually getting huge. They're kind of a synth pop band, like dance punk kind of thing going on. And I used to sneak into his shows when I was like 17, 18, because I wasn't old enough to get into the bar. And I would like climb along these hedges into this place called Go Bar. And I would like sneak in. The joke is I probably owe Dan like $100 from shows that I like snuck into for him. But Dan, you know, he's, like I said, he's Professor Dan. He runs an entire department at UGA, and he's like one of the most brilliant people I know, but he's very busy. He was, quote unquote, retired from music, basically. He kind of like hung up the boots on that part of his life, but he heard what we were doing, and he called Jason. I didn't really know him that well at the time, which is funny in retrospect because he's like one of my best friends now. But he called Jason. He was like, hey, I want to play bass for this thing that y'all are doing, because this is before we even had a name. And so he came in and he just like loved it. He was very skeptical because he hadn't heard my voice yet, but I started singing and he's like, I'm in, because that's one of the only things about myself that I like will confidently say that I'm good at is I am a good singer. Everything
Your
else, I
voice
have no
is
idea what I'm doing. But
monumental.
thank
And
you, thank
I
you.
do have to agree with you. I can't wait for Robert Smith.
Ah,
Robert Smith's quote when he hears your voice,
that would be
because
that
it's
would
gonna
just
happen.
that would be just like I don't know that I would probably go into cardiac arrest and that would be the end of the band. But so Dan joined up and we got the name. Our name is based off an old video rental store that was independent to Athens. They had a couple other locations like in Georgia, but it was based out of Athens, and it was super cool. They always had like every weird cult classic movie, and they had it was a very communal thing. Like you go into the video store and there are like employee picks, and you had your person, and I had my like this like weirdo college student girl that was into horror, and I was like obsessed with her. I never met her. I didn't even know what she looked like, but I loved her because of her movies. And I would always just like rent everything that she recommended. So there was this cool place, and it actually only closed like 4 years ago. They made it
Oh, that's
through
pretty good.
they made it past Blockbuster.
That's
So
awesome.
it's a very Athens thing, and it's just a cool name. So we took the name with the permission of them, and then Emily came to our first show. We were a three-piece. We were playing on the rooftop of the Georgia Theater, and so we were looking for like a keyboardist, but we didn't like that's the hardest fucking thing to find is somebody that's cool, that's like not a piece of shit. That's like any musician. It's just like, how do you find somebody that's not like just this totally problematic asshole who's gonna ruin your fucking band or like not ever show up, but somebody that's cool, that's also good, and a keyboard player. Like it's so hard. So we're like expressing that concept to a friend, and our friend was like, dude, you know that your friend Emily, she's classically trained in piano. She's this like 6 foot tall hot goth girl, and she's like your friend. She's an awesome person. I was like, what? What the fuck? So we called her, and I was like, Emily, I didn't know you played piano. She's like, yeah, I grew up playing classical piano, like competitively. But she's like, I've never played in a band. I've never touched a synthesizer. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I was like, doesn't
Oh,
matter. It
wow.
doesn't matter. I was like, it doesn't matter at all. Come over, come to the practice, and we'll put this keyboard in front of you, and you just do whatever you feel like. So she came over, and it was real touch and go at first. Like she was so nervous. And I was like, we cracked open a couple beers, and I was like, all right, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't. I fuck up all the time. I have no clue what I'm doing. Just do what you feel. And if it doesn't work, you move it and you shift it and you change it and you'll find something and you'll get onto the track. And she's like, okay, I think I know what you mean. So we go back in the room, and she just fucking nails like all the songs that we had written. I mean, like one's done, next one, okay, done. Like 15 minutes later, done, next one. And I'm just like, we're all like, what the fuck is going on? And then even more insane, we get to the studio, and we're like, we have these songs, they're all basically written and done. Sorry, there's a train that goes, it's really loud. But we're like discovering the fact that Emily has this fucking crazy good voice. So we just like, we wrote a couple more songs and put her on and she's just like totally becoming this fucking rock star, like right in front of our eyes. And in fact, our next single, it's basically just her singing. I have one line as background, and it's very like low, like you can barely even hear it, and it's her song. I mean, like I helped her write it. I wrote the music, the basic, like the structural music, and then I helped her kind of work on the lyrics. But other than that, it's her song. I mean, it is her song. And the video you're gonna dig, because she like, it's the video is like, I'm her like basically lover, and she is the serial killer, and I find these like Polaroids of her murder victims, and she like brutally murders me, and like it's fucking ultra graphic, and it's shot to look like a giallo horror movie. Yes. And she like literally buries me out in the fucking woods, and it's just it's crazy. But you're gonna see a very different side of the band with her and that song. It's just so good. I mean, it's so good. But that's basically kind of how it all came together in essence. I mean, it was about a year and a half of just happenstance that all just sort of linked up, synchronicities. I'm
I'm
sort of
telling
into
you,
I'm
it's
into
magic too.
I'm into the chaos magic world
Me
myself.
too.
So, I every time I find these synchronicities, I'm a very like Paul Hines kind of guy. I go for when things connect, even if it's not like ideal to your circumstance. When things are connecting, that's you find these weird um, um, sort of parallels and things that just are too good to be true. It's like, okay,
Exactly.
you're on the right path. And it
Exactly.
needs to be so. Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's been a crazy, crazy time. For sure.
Insane. And the fact that you guys have still kept going, I'm seeing music videos,
Mm,
singles have been released. I know there's no live tours now, but once we do get cleared to do live shows, which in my opinion, and based off the things that I've read, and I've learned a lot about chaos magic through Alexis McCullough, the lead singer of Three
mm,
Teeth. Um, Absolute genius. I think you'd really enjoy him and enjoy the theories. He's an absolutely intelligent person, and I don't think he's
right.
from this planet or this galaxy. Um, I love him so much. And so,
Yeah.
anyways, he's that guy that my husband would be like, I can't leave her in a room with, by herself. Um, but he had posted something from this book that he read, because I was to get through my the fact that I've learned to not have expectations. So my 40th birthday was supposed to be a crossroads. Long story short, it was just a huge disappointment with everything. But like you, I was like, well, I'm not going to let this, kill me. I'm not going to let this bother me. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do.
Right.
So in order to support the band, I decided, all right, I'm going to do his Patreon. But he
Yeah.
posted this book, and I'll send it to you later. I'll send you a link. But basically, it's like the Return of Pluto. We're at the time where Pluto is in the position where it was when America was
wow.
born. And so we're in for, 2020 was a precursor. I feel like you probably knew there was a shift coming before 2020.
Yeah.
Went the way it went. There was a shift coming. I couldn't decipher it was good or bad. I thought it was going to be tremendous in a different way, but it ended up being, different than what I expected. That's why I learned to stop having expectations. But it says in this particular piece, and I'm not doing it verbatim, but we're in for some harder times. And basically, if you don't go with the flow, you don't adapt to the changes, which, thankfully goths are really good at, doing such things.
Right.
Going with the flow, people are going to get left behind. And I'm seeing that people, even in my own little circle, who are just so stuck on holding on to that same ideal. So we're in for some harder times. I don't think that we're going to see live music for at least another 2 or 3 years. That's just my perspective and my, things that I've meditated on. And it's not, maybe they will allow for live shows. Maybe they will allow for theme parks to reopen and all that jazz, but am I going to be okay going to those? Time will tell. But when we are ultimately able to go back, being as I don't see video going anywhere at this point, I'm seeing a lot of bands, even Three Teeth, I'm a little concerned about, because they got signed with Sony, and Alexis was even like, I didn't really want to do a big label thing, but I'm seeing they've been in Joshua Tree for they went right after, they canceled the whole tour, obviously.
Right.
And they were like, fine, we'll go work on our next album. And they have been. I've been following them the whole time. He's ghosted me a few times, but I'm like, I'm going to get you one day, Lex. But I'm noticing that they're being held back by these studios. So it's going to be bands like you guys and my Italian post-punk bands that are going to come bursting through.
Yeah.
So when we are able to do shows again, who would you ultimately love to go on tour with? Like, who do you see yourselves going, I want to...
I mean, to be quite completely honest, like, and this is not I think there's like a presiding feeling like you have to say like some other local band or whatever, but to be like totally 100% real with you, the bands that I want to go play with are bands that are basically on the same level as us. I really don't care about these huge bands.
I mean, it's
like if I could open for The Cure, yeah, that's like opening for God, so whatever. But you know, there are bands like up in PA, Corin. I don't know if you've ever heard them.
I'm not, so you're
Corin
gonna have to
is
send me links. Yeah.
God. Corin. It's like this synth pop
Chorus.
gothy duo, and it's Korine, and they are fucking unbelievable.
Are they on your playlist that
They
I'm
probably
obviously
are.
subscribed to?
Yeah, if it's probably on there. I recommend looking up Uncrossed. Is like the video for that is fucking so
Okay.
cool. But them, there's a band in Asheville called Secret Shame, and they're kind of like this very like death rocky kind of, but with these like really super sweet pop elements. Like they put out this new single last year called Dissolve, and it's got like Cure-esque vibes to it. Um, but Leah is the lead singer, and her voice is just like her lyrics are fucking like it gives you chills how good they are because
Mhm.
it's so real and honest and just genuine and I can like I get that like we were talking about the transmission of message. I like understand exactly where her heart was
Mhm.
in that moment of writing that song to the best of my interpretation anyway. But
I love it.
Secret Shame is fucking great. And then if I have to say one more, let's see. I'd say I've been really just crushing on this band lately called House of Harm. They're very post-punk, melodic. They're like if we're like 7 on the poppy but gothy scale, they're like an 8. They're a little bit more like upbeat and kind of it's I mean the vocals are just beautiful, the lyrics are great, but the musicianship is fucking phenomenal. The songwriting is just so like comprehensively good. And I would love to like play with those guys anytime. So yeah, I mean, and I think that those are like the most interesting acts to play with because I mean, we've only opened for like one big band, and that was honestly it was Pylon here in Georgia in Athens, and
Ooh.
they're a huge post punk band. It was Vanessa Hayes' sort of reincarnation of Pylon called Pylon, or it's Pylon Reenactment Society (PRS). So it's basically Pylon, but it's just like her and her new band.
Yeah,
The other guys have like
that's
retired
dope.
basically, and we opened for them, and that was like fucking really cool because they're like totally humble and like they don't, they're a huge band, but they're not like they don't have that mentality. So I don't even really
Right.
know what it's like to outside of working like at a music venue and seeing how I have signed a non-disclosure agreement with the Georgia Theater to not talk shit about these famous musicians. But let me tell you something: those fucking people are gigantic douchebags, like
Oh, I
75%
know.
of the time, seventy five
Yep.
percent, maybe more, because they think that they're owed something, and it's like,
Hmm.
look, dude, you are fucking nothing without these people, nothing.
Thank you.
You know what I
And
mean? And
that's one of those things where, too, I think that I'm starting to notice. By the way, that was like the best answer any musician has ever given me. So thank you. Because I do, I talk to a lot of, indie bands and, I've never gotten that response. But even like with Three Teeth, I'm starting to feel like the loss of appeal because I'm worried. I'm more concerned because they're going to turn into that. And the fact that Lex was like, not that I took it personal or anything, but I could just feel
yeah,
difference because it's not like we haven't talked before. I've been to their show transformed me in
yeah,
2018, but I can feel the change already. I don't know if it's premeditated on my end. Time will tell, but
yeah.
I
I
used to
think it's
work for Clear
hard. Yeah.
Channel,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so I know
You
how
know.
addictive.
Yeah.
I remember standing in the pit for 10 hours waiting for the Cure to come on, peeing myself
Right.
because I was not about to miss out on talk
Fucking
about being
A.
gross. I was
Yeah.
like not gonna miss being right there in his presence. And I remember
Yep.
when he came out, it was like the best thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
transcended. But
Yes.
then I was like, I don't need to
Absolutely.
see the Cure again. Like they would come back to California, and all my friends would go. I'm like, I'm good because I still have. It was like a
Yeah.
thousand degrees. I pissed myself. I was drunk. I took a beating. 10 hours,
Yeah. Yeah.
Dusty.
Yeah.
But at the end of the night, I'm piss soaked, beer soaked, sweat soaked, gross. But I went
It's rock and
into,
roll.
the back. Yeah, I went into the backstage at this huge venue, and they were like, Robert Smith's in there. And I wasn't expecting for him. I wasn't going to speak. I wasn't going to say anything. I had nothing to say, but we sat there. He's drunk off his ass, but he's playing, he's like melting and shit, but he's playing the fucking piano. And he just looks up, waves, and just kept going. And I'm like, this is fucking it right here.
That's great.
So, but I've also experienced the assholes, you know, like fucking, I could say it, Psychedelic Furs.
Oh, wow. That's unfortunate.
Fucking assholes. Yeah. And fuck, I don't know. But I go boomers.
yeah, pretty much.
Boomers. But I don't know, it's just incredible. This has been great. I have so much content, and this is what I love. I love the fact that you gave me your time to actually just get a feel for who you are. I can pick apart, and some of my things were correct. I could tell your makeup's based on your mood. I knew you had a story. What I am surprised about is, you know, I was expecting the same story about Inked in Red being a story of mental health destruction. I wasn't expecting it to be, you know, based off of a different trauma than what I'm used to hearing. Yeah. You know, so I am in love. I appreciate this, and I'll be on tonight, by the way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I will say, get your request in early, because they fill up like really weirdly quick. It's like a real karaoke night. Like if you don't get there like at the beginning, it just goes.
I'll be prepared. I'll have my drink ready.
It's gonna be really fun. It's just so it's such a funny, like, because we don't. I mean, if you couldn't tell, like, I don't take much of anything seriously. And we, you know, that's like, I think one of my only problems with like the goth and like post-punk world is that you have a lot of bands that are like so fucking serious that it's like, dude, you look like a 50s horror movie monster. Like, you need to fucking calm down. Like, you cannot walk outside of your door and act like you are not completely fucking absurd. Because we are. I mean, like you look at Nick Fiend from Alien Sex Fiend. The man looked like a cartoon character, but they like owned that, and that's why it's fucking brilliant.
So badass.
So, you know, there are moments in time where you need to be serious, and, you know, like, our music is serious. There are serious parts of it, but like, I'm never like, I don't know. It drives me fucking crazy sometimes where I see these people who are like, you know, and again, I'm not going to name names because I'm not here to like slander anybody, but there's so many people in this world that we exist in where it's like, dude, like, who told you that it had to be this like morose, like, you know, funeral dirge of an experience? Like, the music is scary and creepy and weird and macabre, but we don't have to be like that, because there's no fucking fun in that. Like, it's like you're literally becoming this caricature of a stereotype, and that's just so lame. Like, it's I know. I got told
cheesy. Once, they were like, why? They're like, I have one criticism. One of my followers told me, and I'm like, oh, what is that? I'll give it to me. You know, I don't get constructive criticism, and I'm like craving it. Yeah. And it was, you smile too much. And I'm like, what the fuck you mean?
Get out of here.
Like, you're into horror, you're goth, but you smile too much. I'm like, well, this shit makes me fucking happy. So I'm always, I can't fucking help. And I look dumb when I don't smile. So it's not my fault.
I know. I am like, I look like I am simple-minded because I smile so much. I mean, I'm just like, I don't, you know, like, what's the fucking point? Like, it drives me so crazy. So it's always very refreshing to talk to somebody like yourself who shows the joy that we experience from the like darker side of things.
Exactly. We have to have our darkness.
because if you are the kind of person that is so morose and so just like enthralled into this macabre, you know, presentation of yourself, like, you become a joke.
Yep.
Like,
and that's where that
joke.
That's where I'm like, oh, so that's why I think it's really important that you keep doing what you're doing. This is phenomenal. I'm so fucking glad Rick sent me to you. I think he could tell I was getting exhausted from the surf music shit. And I'm like, can somebody please give me my psychobilly horror punk? Give me my post-punk shit. I love the surge in post-punk. Like, fuck. Like, this is everything to me. Cool. And it's not being shit on, you know, like, it's not, it's these newer bands are doing it justice. So I
Right.
appreciate you tremendously.
Of
And don't think
course.
I will probably harass you for the foreseeable future because
No,
I'm
by all
now
means. I'm
just a fan. And I'm gonna actually post the feature that I wanted to write about to get your feel, to feel your
okay.
energy. And I'm trying to do bands and music every Thursday called Michelle's Tuesday Tunes. Mostly on my website, but I will post it on social media and stuff. So
Okay.
I need you guys up on Tuesday.
Okay.
But I'll be in
Sounds
tonight
good.
and I'll go ahead and share it myself. But I'm going to have fun with you guys tonight. Usually it's my
Excellent.
night to write with DJ Thomas Sikorsky, but fuck
Yeah.
it. Let's have a party.
Cool. Well, you can always pop in and out. We'll probably be doing it for about an hour and a half. So no
Perfect.
worries.
Perfect.
Yeah.
He goes all night. So this is
Cool.
great. Dusty,
Cool.
thank you so fucking much
Yeah.
for
Thanks,
today.
Michelle. I really appreciate the time. It's a total pleasure. It's not every day that I get to I've been doing a lot of interviews and kind of just, conversations with people. And I've had a couple, not most of them have been really great, but I've had a couple where it's man, not to be rude, but can we fucking wrap this up?
I've had them
You know what
too.
I mean? It's you're not asking me anything about the reality of the stuff. You're just asking me what's your favorite Cure record? And I'm yeah, okay, cool. I'm by all means, I will tell you, but it's very, very refreshing and just totally a pleasure for me to spend the time with you. So
Absolutely. Convey the energy. That's what I love to do. I love to
hell yeah,
convey and translate people's energy. So,
hell yeah,
and I'll
absolutely, man.
probably send you links and shit. Like I said, you're not
Yes,
going to get rid
please,
of me
please do.
anytime soon.
We'll repost everything. I'm very good at making sure that the signal gets boosted from anything that
Oh, you're the rock. You rock.
by all means, send us the links and we'll be reposting all of that in the
Oh,
days to come.
perfect. And not just that, just for personal stuff. And I'll send you
Yeah,
this
yeah,
and I'll be in touch. Let's just put it
cool,
this way. I'll be in
cool.
touch.
Sounds great.
All right.
Alrighty,
You have a
Michelle.
good afternoon. I'll see you tonight.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see you. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye. You
Bye.
too. Bye.